From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHillIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher Andrew Jones. And AJ Sala. Yeah, in person, man. That's a good point. It's been a while. It really has been a long time.
So much.
It's probably been a lot less than we think it has, but it feels like it's been a long time since I've been sitting on this court doing a post-game video instead of over Zoom. But Carolina getting a really impressive 100-80 victory over NC State. Free biscuits tomorrow for Carolina fans. I know they were ranting and raving about that.
We're excited more about that than anything else.
Fantastic atmosphere. Obviously a big day for Carolina basketball. Roy Williams getting honored at halftime, not hired at halftime, excuse me. 1982 team getting honored.
I'm not going there.
not going there. 1982 team getting honored in the second half as well. And, a lot to talk about, AJ, of course, but I want to start with just kind of what I alluded to there. Really big day for Carolina basketball. And I tweeted it out a couple of times kind of towards the end of the game and kind of after it was done saying, I think if you're a Carolina fan, I'm not sure it could have gone much better for you. If you're part of the Carolina basketball program, I'm not sure today could have gone much better. 4 guys in double figures. Carolina played really, really well on both sides of the floor. I mean, if we're being honest, that game was basically over at halftime, probably even before that. Really, just a really, really good display on both sides of the court for the Tar Heels. Culminates in a really big victory. I know it was only 20 points, but with how they kind of ended the game with some of the guys who were in there, it was more than that margin of victory. But just a perfect day for Carolina basketball, I think, and even Hubert Davis basically said that in his press conference.
Yeah, they were up by 35 with 14 something left in the game, and they could have pushed this thing a lot more than that. You had the 1982 team here.
Yep.
And MJ was here. James, Sam Perkins were not, but MJ was here, and I think it kind of just MJ was here. I think that would have been enough for these kids, and he did talk to the kids, and they were pretty jazzed up about that. And then, right behind where we're doing this right now, behind the camera, you had Raymond Felton, you had PJ Harrison, you had just so many.
Marvin Williams was here. I didn't see him, but he was here.
A lot of more Roy's former players were here because they honored Roy at halftime. I mean, this thing set up that there was just so much Carolina basketball juice just overflowing that they had to play like this. Mm-hmm. There's no way they could have gotten away with not playing like this. They had every bit of possible fuel you can imagine, feeding into them in this game, and it showed on both ends of the court. Offensively, which we're talking about in this segment, and they were awesome. They were hitting shots. I mean, Roy says things always look better when the ball goes to the basket, but they were really good in getting those shots.
100%.
I loved the way they played in transition in the first half. They scored a bunch of points in transition in the first half, but it wasn't just, ball goes to center of the court, guys fill lanes, and they have a layup drill. It wasn't that. They were finding their spots, and teammates were finding guys. They hit jumpers in transition. They had a couple threes in transition in the first half. Guys were finding each other. The alertness of the guards that when they dribbled in the lane and suddenly it wasn't there, they found somebody. Sometimes the bigs, they kick the ball out and they get it back. I'm a big fan of reposting.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And bigs get rid of the ball, and sometimes they don't like getting rid of it because they're not going to get it again on that possession. Well, they got it back a few times, and sometimes they kicked it out again. I don't know how many assists Manick had, but we've talked about this before. When Brady Manick is getting 4 and 5 assists in a game, things are clicking. It's not just him playing well. That means everything is flowing.
Yeah.
So if you think of the game being played the right way, sort of poetry and motion kind of crap that people talk about sometimes, I'm going to use it here because that's what they were offensively. They got open shots everywhere. I imagine if you look at the shot chart and the made shot chart, there's spots all over the place, but a lot of them were on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the last 4 games coming into this one, they had shot 33% from the floor, and they were below 30% from three-point range. In the first 16 going in, they were at 48% from the floor and almost 40 from 3. So they kind of made up for it a little bit today.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you kind of knew, look, at some point, these guys are going to start making shots, and they did it all at the same time, in abundance. And the body language on NC State by the second TV timeout was basically this game's over.
Oh, absolutely.
And it wasn't just offensively, it was defensively. We're going to hit on in a second. But, man, they were really good offensively. They were on point, heads up, alert, awareness. Man, the energy they played with on offense. And, gosh, this was probably as well as they played during the first half offensively any game this season.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, if that's the best you think they have played during half offensively.
I think it was. I mean, they were at 50. It was 56-28. and they still had time to get to 60, and some people are thinking, man, they might get to 60. Honestly, they look like a Roy Williams team, and I'm only bringing this up because too many people lately have tried to compare, and they did change some things up, but Roy had teams every once in a while, and certainly a few times in this building against NC State, they'd blow past 50 in the first half of a game, and they were scoring myriad kind of ways. This team did that, and I think that's a great sign for them because they were really bad offensively earlier this week for the most part. So when against BC, they weren't that good against Virginia Tech, even though they scored 78 points, and that came on the heels of the two horrible losses last week. So they needed this. They needed a really good performance offensively, and they got one. Now they just got it bottled up and carried on the flight to Louisville with them for Tuesday.
Most definitely. Shameless plug incoming, just a warning. We did post the Roy. We were on the court for the Roy Williams halftime ceremony. If you did miss that, because I did talk to some people who watched it on TV, wasn't shown on the ACC network at all. So check that video out. You can find that on our channel below. AJ, second thing I want to talk about though, let's talk about defense. You kind of alluded to it, particularly in that first half. I thought Carolina was really good defensively as well. Played with a lot of energy. That's something that Hubert Davis has obviously harped on a lot, more so for the team as a whole. But you saw it on both ends of the court today. And even for the whole game, I know, like I said, State ended up with 80 points after a pretty quiet first half. There was a lot of reasons for that based on some of the lineups that were in for Carolina in the second half. Human nature as well. You take your foot off the gas when you're up by 30-plus points. But I thought defensively, particularly in that first half, Carolina played really well against the Wolfpack.
Well, that's part of it. You don't just blow a team out because you're really good offensively. No. The way you blow it, you're up 28 over a team that has talent.
Yeah, we play a little defense, right?
Yeah, I know State's struggling, and it's too bad they don't have Bates. I mean, they would be very different defensively if they had the rim protector. But they are what they are coming in, and they're certainly a club I thought was dangerous enough that if Carolina wasn't ready to play, or if Carolina kind of stumbled through stuff like they did a lot here recently, State could have come in here and won this game. So I thought the biggest challenge was defending the dribble drive. Yeah. State's got dudes that can create their own shots. They're a very bouncy, very springy team. Carolina's not a very bouncy.
We talked about that early on in the game up there.
Absolutely, and I thought, okay, how are they going to defend them? Man, they were really good. And they weren't great on the ball. They were good on the ball, but if you're going to have help side defense, if guys are going to rotate over and you play man-to-man defense as a group of five, sometimes you can invite the drive into problems, and they did that. And they had weak side blocks. Leakey had one, and he almost got another one.
He could have had a few. Yeah.
We were talking about that. So that was an example of how on point they were with their rotations and with helping out. And you guys know, anybody that's a Carolina fan knows right now, that's been an issue. That's something that Hubert's really talked about. Like, when they're not good defensively, they're bad on the ball, but they don't help. Their rotations are bad. Their communication's bad. They were on point. As good as they were offensively in the first half and as scorching as they were from the field, I thought their defense was outstanding. State finished with 80 points, but disregard all that. Because the game was over at halftime. And Carolina, they were able to establish a mojo offensively, but they put their foot on State's throat defensively.
Yeah.
And they actually did a pretty good job rebounding, given the fact there weren't a lot of rebounds on the offensive end. So they did everything well today for the most part, and they really did do everything well. And defensively was what made this game a laugher, made it over at halftime. I thought that this was the kind of game, we've talked about this a few times, Jacob. Hubert has lots of examples to show these kids. Behind curtain number one, here's how you're supposed to play the game, and here's the way you guys can play the game. Behind curtain number two, don't want that. This was a curtain number one game, and this is something he could show them all the time. Say, see guys, you can play at this level on both ends of the floor with this kind of energy, with this kind of passion, with this kind of mojo, and have it connect to everybody who gets in the game. So now they have to learn to carry that stuff forward when they don't have the 82 team here. They don't have MJ here. They don't have 22,000 people here, and Brady Manick and Caleb Love are on fire from three. They need to still have that when stuff isn't going so well for them. We'll see Tuesday night if they can carry that to Louisville, which I think is going to be a pretty challenging game for this team.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with the kind of coaching switches going on over there. I think you'll see a more inspired Louisville team than you definitely would have saw a week ago under Chris Mack. We'll see what happens on Tuesday night. But let's kind of, last thing I want to talk about, this is not necessarily on this game, it'll tie to it, but just kind of looking back on the week for Carolina. 3 games in a week, big win over Virginia Tech, and then Boston College win as well, and then, capitalizing with a huge win over NC State, in which we saw today. it's a good week for the Tar Heels. I mean, a lot of players talked about it in the press conference. Hubert talked about it a little bit. Hubert's talked about a lot of the criticism they received after those Miami and Wake Forest games. Rightly so. Yeah, rightly so, right? Based on the criticism they received. They were not good on the road in those games, and that's something they still got to improve on. But what you saw this week was a team that bounced back. A team that, we talked about against Boston College, was tired and fatigued, looked fatigued against Boston College, and came back today and did not look like that. Played with a lot of energy, played a lot better. I know there was a little bit more days in between that game, but when you're looking back at this week for Carolina and you put an exclamation point on it with a victory like this over a rival that Roy Williams doesn't like, Hubert Davis doesn't like, the whole team doesn't like, every Carolina fan in this building doesn't like, I think it's a good week and one you can definitely build on going into another tough week next week with Louisville and Duke coming up.
It's a long season.
Yeah, it is.
And there are a lot of storylines, there are a lot of ebbs and flows, and I've talked about this a lot. I like to look at the season as a book, and each game is a chapter. In football, each game is definitely a chapter. In basketball, maybe each week is a chapter. Yeah. And the chapter before this was, a train wreck and inferno, and you think of all the horrible things you want to say to describe it. That's what it was for this team. This week was kind of recovering from that. When you're climbing out, it's still. I mean, I think it's better for them that this performance was today and it wasn't Monday night. Mm-hmm. They needed to grind some games out and win. They need to win when they weren't playing that well. They need to win when they didn't shoot well. They didn't shoot well Monday. They didn't shoot well Wednesday, and they won games. Disregard the fact that they played some struggling teams. This team was struggling itself. It qualified in the same category. So I think that they actually gained a lot of confidence. And remember, I asked Hubert Wednesday night, can you gain confidence, maybe even more confidence, when you win and you have to scratch and claw and you got to kick over some stones to kind of get to where you need get to the finish line with a W? And he said yes. Now today, doing this after those two games, I think this adds to the confidence, because this shows them, okay, you guys can look like Carolina. This was Carolina basketball. All this stuff that's hanging in this building here, those banners recognize what they saw today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're like, yeah, okay, that's normal. This is what this is all about here. This is what this brand is all about. And they saw it today. But I really think that to get to today, they needed Monday, they needed Wednesday, they needed to win when not playing well, because now they can check those things off.
Yeah.
So this was a very productive week. I don't think they've fully distanced themselves from what happened in Miami and Wake Forest. And I don't think they'll achieve that if they win there. I think next Saturday when Duke comes in, because not just because it's Duke, but because there aren't that many high-value games in this league because the league is so down. So that will be a test. A club that's athletic, a club that's big, a club that's got potential to go to the Final Four. There aren't many of those opportunities on this schedule, so we'll really learn a lot next week. But we'll learn something this week. All the people that thought, Hubert should resign last week, and he's lost the kids, and they don't get along. Well, that's garbage. You don't do it. They're folding the stands.
Yeah, sorry for the mortars going off in the back.
You don't win in the way these kids did the 3 games this week if the coach doesn't have it. And MJ's message to the kids today was, look, your coach is very emotional, he's very passionate. You guys need to match that or surpass it. We saw that today, and I just think it was a good week for them. But it was just 1 week. It's the book. This was just one chapter in the book. So how will the next chapter go? It's a big chapter, the biggest chapter of the year, because they're going to go on the road to play a team that, I don't know, these kids have not respected every opponent this year, so how do they respect Louisville with all that's going on there? And then they got the emotional home game here next week. That they could be either loose and fired up, ready to go, or stressed, tight. Who knows? This is a big week coming up, but they needed this past week to lead into this coming week in order for us to really get a much better idea of who this team is eventually going to be.
Yeah, who knows what will happen next week. But what we do know is Carolina picked up a big win over NC State here in the Smith Center. Fun game to cover as well. Now, you mentioned it too before the game, kind of during pregame when they were playing jump around. It's like these are the games
we haven't had this.
I mean, it's ones you want to cover.
Michigan was a good atmosphere, but we had nothing last year. I covered a lot of games last year in completely empty arenas. I told you in Cleveland for the CBS Sports Class against Kentucky, there were 100 people in the building. If you include the teams, team personnel, game personnel, and the 8 members of the media and 4 security people. There were 4 security people.
This is the best atmosphere we've seen in years because of what happened.
This felt normal today, other than people still wearing masks and stuff like that. I mean, you didn't really even notice it much. Not many people were wearing it in the stands either. So this felt normal. It felt good. This felt like ACC basketball today, and that was pretty cool.
It did. It definitely did. Carolina picking up the 100-80 victory over NC State. right on that court right behind us is Kerr Walton still gets some shots up back there. And please excuse what probably sounds like bombs going off behind us sometimes. It's tough to get it in over here with everybody cleaning up. But keep it locked to CharlieIllustrated.com. Make sure you check it out for all your post-game coverage from today's win. Obviously, AJ will be in Louisville next week. We'll be at the Duke game as well. So make sure you guys keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I believe David's film review is coming. Too.
Doing it right now because when he tweets it out, my phone
blows up. Yeah.
If you didn't hear that crashing sound back there, you heard my phone going off. David's going crazy.
He's all on it, man. I give him credit.
Check it out. And you have to be a premium subscriber. It's only $8.33 a month. But if you love Carolina basketball and you want to learn about stuff, the good and the bad, you got to look at David's reviews. And the stuff that he tweets is just a snippet.
Yeah.
The real meat is inside the story.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I always retweet his stuff because, like I said, David does not miss what I like to say on his film reviews. They're always on point. So, like I said, keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. If you want to see that Roy Williams video from him honored at halftime, make sure you check our YouTube channel out as well. Should be able to find it pretty easily. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. And real quickly, hit the link in the description below to head on over to our website. You can sign up for just $8.33 a month to become a premium subscriber, and you can see things like some of AJ's writing and David's film reviews as well that you can't have unless you signed up. Yeah.
And the boards are fantastic.
Huge.
The boards have been on fire, both good and bad lately.
Yeah.
Some of them are the ones that maybe wanted Hubert gone, right?
Probably.
Now some are all loving Hubert today, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, exactly. But make sure you guys keep
the mind of a fan. Baby.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Like I said, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. See you on the next one. Thanks.